And we start in South Africa, where thousands of mourners are expected to descend on the famous St. George's Cathedral in Cape Town over the next 2 days to pay their last respects to the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu.
Now, the remains of the late anti-apartheid cleric arrived at the cathedral this morning. Well, the late Desmond Tutu, who won the Nobel Peace Prize for his work against the regime, died on Sunday at the age of 90. Now, the city of Cape Town has been pulling out all the stops to celebrate the life of the late Arch, and he was, as he was affectionately known back then.
Now, joining us this morning is editor and journalist Candice Bailey to give us the latest. Many thanks for joining the program, Candice. Now, can you give us a bit of a rundown of what happened this morning and what might later unfold later today and even tomorrow?
Morning, Olichi. Morning, Olisa. So this morning, it was a very emotional morning for the family of Desmond Tutu, for Archbishop Desmond Tutu. His remains arrived at the church just about a half an hour ago. The cortege proceeded through the city of Cape Town, through the streets of Cape Town, until it arrived at the cathedral, which is in Wales Street in Cape Town, where his family members and senior clergymen in the Anglican Church accepted his body and then took it inside. They were expected to arrive at about 7 this morning, but it was a bit later. It only happened at about 8:30 South African time. And what's happening for the rest of the day is that his body will now remain in state today and tomorrow, allowing ordinary South Africans and mourners to pay their last respects to him and come view his body. They'll be able to do so from 9 a.m. in the morning until about 5 a.m. In the evening for the next 2 days. And it's really just a way of the city of Cape Town and the Desmond and Leah Tutu Foundation allowing mourners to, honor this great man and the work that he's done in South Africa over the last 30 or so years.
All right, Candice, it just got about 10 minutes past 9 a.m. out there in South Africa right now. Now, the COVID pandemic is likely to affect Desmond Tutu's burial. So how will things be done differently to avoid it being a super spreader event? There might be fears on that, you might say.
There may be. The Western Cape at the moment is in the middle of its fourth wave of the Omicron variant. What we do know is that the presidency in South Africa has allowed the funeral of the Archbishop to be a Category 1 funeral. Now, under normal circumstances, this would entail full military ceremonial elements, such as a 21-gun salute, the military accepting the body at the city hall where it should be held, etc. But what's happening in line with COVID, as well as the Arch's requests, it's actually going to be a very low-key event. The only military ceremonial element that will be held over the next 2 days is that all flags will be flown at half-mast across the country and at all the commissions. And the military will present the flag to the family of the late Arch at the funeral on Saturday. So the funeral will be held at the church on New Year's Day on Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning in South African time. But it will only that will be the only ceremonial elements, and it will have strict COVID protocols. People will have to wear their masks and do the usual, so that we avoid it being a super spread event. There'll also be a limited number of people who will be able to attend this funeral service.
All right. Now, Candice, can you also tell us, in terms of this memorial, we know it's been a 1 week whole event planned out for this burial. Now, can you give us some of the details in terms of some of the heads of state that might be coming, or the ones that have even come in the past few days, and how things will be properly done ahead of January 1st for the final burial?
So at the moment, we don't have any final confirmation as to which heads of state will be attending this funeral and how it will be running down. But what we have seen over the last few days, Oluchi and Lisa, is that there have been several different ways of South Africans being able to outpour their emotions and just to mourn this great man. What we saw yesterday is we had an interfaith memorial service that took place at the City Hall in Cape Town, which is a very historic place. It's the same place where the former statesman Nelson Mandela delivered his first speech after being released from jail. And at that service, we saw 10 different religious leaders join the stage. And, that's quite a rare thing to happen. They were on stage all celebrating this wonderful man. We saw struggle icons, we saw politicians, both the mayor and the premier of the Western Cape were in attendance at the funeral, and we saw struggle icons and struggle veterans, talk about the relationship that they had with this wonderful man. In the rest of Cape Town, we've also seen a mourner book outside the church. We've seen the Table Mountain as well as the City Hall being lit up in purple in honor of the arch. And also we will be seeing several other memorial services happening across the country. Desmond Tutu also had a house in Soweto in the famous Vilakazi Street, and we've seen mourners also arrive at that house to also pay their respects to him there. There's another memorial service planned for this evening. It is a virtual event, and it's being hosted by the Desmond and Leah Tutu Foundation. So lots of different things that are happening in honor of this man. But his wishes has really been that the proceedings don't go on for longer than a week, and that they really don't have anything over the top or anything that's too extravagant. He's really asked for things to be done very cost effectively, and those wishes are being respected.
All right. Thank you so much, Candice. Just before we let you go, we know that Archbishop Desmond Tutu's burial clearly will be on the front burner. But as we edge closer to the end of the year, today is the 31st, what do you think is perhaps on the mind of South Africans? It's been quite a long 2021. So as we're going into 2022, what's the biggest thing, in South Africa right now people are talking about?
I think at the moment, one of the biggest things that South Africans are talking about is definitely, I think there are three things. One is the Archbishop's death and his funeral that's taking place on Saturday. That's really at the top of their minds. Omicron is still at the top of their minds. We are in a pandemic, and different parts of South Africa are going through a pandemic. And I also think another thing that's coming up that we also are looking at is the ANC's annual celebration, which takes place on the 8th of January, just after New Year. The other thing linked to Omicron that I should tell you about is that there's a petition to try and extend our curfew beyond midnight so that people and partygoers can have a better walk into the new year and not be limited by the midnight curfew that we currently have. So that's possibly one of the big things for the partygoers at the moment.
All right. So interesting times tomorrow night, perhaps for partygoers in South Africa. Well, what we can say, have fun out there. Thank you so much, Candice, and Happy New Year to you in advance.
Thanks, Oluchi. Thanks, Elisa. Same to you. Have a good day.